I'm ready when you all are. Jim, are we ready to go?
We are going.
Okay, hi. It's so nice to be here. This is my first meeting where we're all together in person. So we have a full FNA agenda, and I'm going to just amend the agenda as posted to add an executive session to discuss a real estate issue at the end of our FNA meeting. And I hope that we can do that by 7 o'clock so we have ample time to talk before our meeting. So with that, let's just get started. Samantha, can I turn this over to you for a manager update?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Rickards. So in your packet, as well as the council packet, the manager report is in there. I'll pull that up for just a second here, and I can talk through the talk through any of the highlights on that. Let's see here.
So, can I say that on my end, the audio is okay? I have to try to catch some of the words. I don't know if you got anything on here. I mean, I can make it work, but if there's any way to make it clear, that would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I think maybe everyone just needs to try and kind of like maybe project a little bit.
Or watch it on Facebook.
Okay. Is it helpful to sit closer to the mic, Jim?
Fred is listening to this.
Oh, from there.
Like
Okay, got it.
People on the screen are listening.
All right, we'll project, Fred.
I can. Okay.
All right, so I have up on the screen here the manager report from for this month. I'm welcome in this committee to get into a little more detail on it if you'd like. I try to give enough detail so that you know what the items are. And if we want to get into it all, I'm happy to do that. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I didn't have any questions. Fred, Bob, do you have any questions about the specific manager's report? This is so helpful.
Do not, thank you.
No, thank you. Fred, any questions about manager's report?
I don't think so. I'm just refreshing since it's on the page. No.
Okay.
I'm just catching up, so I might, but...
Well, if you need anything between now and the council meeting, it'll come up again during the council meeting, so you're welcome to ask that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Nothing else on your end, Samantha? We can move in to information items for discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to share, and well, first, I'd like to thank Michelle Carroll for implementing and creating forms for what we had discussed at our last FNA meeting for both the comprehensive plan implementation review and the manager performance review. And Samantha is going to show those forms for us to review. They did. Michelle did exactly what we asked on how to organize the evaluation tools. And then this link she created actually in Teams or Office.
Yeah.
And every council person will be able to complete the form. It'll aggregate the data, and then we can review it. So this is just fantastic. And Samantha's going to share that. Fred, you should be able to see that on the screen.
Can the
Bob?
administrator please let me in to the meeting?
Oh, good idea.
I can't believe this thing. Not at home. Forgot my pencil, my pen.
We don't have drawers
First
anymore.
thanks, Jim, if I may. To make sure my sound is muted. Be sure my mic is muted. Okay.
Okay. You got it? Okie doke.
All right, great. So as Councilmember Rickards mentioned, I agree. I'm very grateful to Michelle Carroll for helping us put this together. We had talked about maybe using Google Forms, but then we realized that our existing Microsoft suite also had a Forms tool that was very similar, and in addition does not require a Google login for people to access. Plus, everyone on council and in the borough already has a Office Microsoft login anyhow as well. So basically what Michelle Carroll did was she took the job description for Borough Manager and turned it into a form. Literally, she just, copied and pasted line by line of the manager job description. And as we talked about at the last meeting, created the 0 to 3 scale along with a space for any, qualitative data to go along with the quantitative Likert scale data. And yeah, she did it for pretty much every item. Unfortunately, both Google Forms and Microsoft Forms would not let you do both the Likert scale and the text box within the same question. So she did have to create a separate, question to accommodate each of those.
And we tried to do a 1A, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
But, oh well. So we had discussed, this is really fantastic. And how many questions did we end with, Samantha?
Yeah, let's see here. So we'll take whatever the last number is and divide it by 2, I guess. So 52 divided by 2, we have 26 in total.
Sure. So we had discussed with FNA, and Samantha, you had really kind of reaffirmed that this was helpful from your position, that a 6-month review, given that this is your first year, where you would complete this, and then we would meet, and then refer to council, and then at the year review, council would complete the evaluation, and then as part of the manager's yearly evaluation, we have the standardized form that, again, it completely mirrors the job description. Completely. And I think at the 6-month part is an opportunity before you get to the year review to identify, here are the problems, here are the pitfalls, here's how we need to readjust. It just helps for a more functioning office.
Yeah,
So
I think the timing is great this year for that as well, given that, give or take 6 months, will be near the end of this year, as well as that's about, when my, when you all will have to consider my first contract renewal, will be early in 2022. So I think I think that timing works really great. I really appreciate the opportunity to fill it out as well, because there might have been things that I did that you all as council don't know about, not because I'm keeping secrets from you, but just I stay busy enough, where if I told you all every little thing I was doing, that's all you'd be spending your time reading about. Yeah. Also, I think from your end, you can also look at what I've done, and if you think I'm taking credit for something that I wasn't necessarily responsible for, then you can also kind of rein me in on that. Hopefully that won't be too much of an issue, but...
That's not the MO of most council folks, so I don't anticipate that problem, but I appreciate you calling that out, for sure. Great. So, Fred, Bob, any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I really just truly appreciate the mirrored assessment. That it matches the job description. I think it's such a great model for. Imagine you're setting this kind of evaluation up for all of your employees.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I would, if we're good with this, I would love to do something like this with everyone else.
Yeah. Max. So yeah, absolutely, this is great work. Thank you.
So I do have a concern, which is that there are a lot of categories here. There's 26 categories. So all 7 council members going through 26 categories. I think it might work better from our end if we took, say, 10 that we have, direct experience with. Because some of these, like I'm looking at, manage internal controls and improve accounting practices. And we don't see you do that. So it might be good to have you score yourself on that and let us know. But I feel like we should focus on the categories where we interact with you and we see them in action. Because we can't really judge. So I might produce the number that council rates.
Okay, Bob?
In my experience, Fred, of doing these kinds of evaluation, I just write NA if I don't know anything about, not applicable if I don't know anything about that category of a person's performance or my experience.
Sure.
So, I think it's good to leave them all there and just let people know that, to decide if it's applicable or not.
And it's not required. So you can just skip that question altogether.
Yeah, so in aggregate, you don't have to answer every single one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Right, because I would question how we would identify those 10. Because to your point, Bob, you may be working on a project where you could assess something
Yes.
where I could not.
Exactly.
And the hope is that that's diversified among the 7 of us on council. So we're all not working on the same.
Yeah, I mean, almost to Fred's point, I think, I'm starting to learn which particular issues and areas each one of you are most involved in and most interested in. And it could be that maybe each council member doesn't do every single one of them, but maybe, like Fred, maybe the 10 that you're most involved in might be different than like the 10 that Cindy's most involved in. But between all 7 of us, we'll get a reasonable sample between all 26.
Fred, does that feel comfortable to you?
I mean, we could try it. I think, we should definitely have the expectation that, rate where you have a basis for opinion, where you have knowledge and a reason for it, but make it clear that that answer, like not applicable or no information, is an appropriate response.
Yep.
So
Maybe a little space
okay.
for comments, that if, I don't know if it goes at the end, a consolidated spot for comments that could be coded, or just whether with each one you write a comment. It
so
depends on who's going to read these and aggregate them. Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, Bob, on each individual question, not only is it the 0 through 3, but there is a spot for comment. But we could also add at the very end just any other all comments or general thoughts or something like that.
Yeah.
I think maybe we might want to star some and make sure that everybody does answer certain of them. Like, I don't know, some of the things that we feel are the most important. Supervision of borough staff, for instance, right? Number 1 and 2. That's a core. I mean, we could say these are some core responsibilities that everybody should rate, and then otherwise do what you know.
Okay. And you know what? We can actually just make those questions required, Fred. So to your point, like star, we can identify at the question level if it's required or not.
That sounds good.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, in terms of collating it, as far as the quantitative part goes, this system will automatically will do that part. Now for the quantitative comments, someone on council, council would have to figure out how it wants to handle that. But at least the quantitative part would already be calculated by the form itself.
Sure. And I actually would volunteer to kind of code that qualitative data. We can look for emergent themes and do some word counts pretty easily too. And we can do that in F&A and then present it to the council. Okay. Great.
We may also have to look at the actual scale, because this is the scale from the other thing, so it starts with not complete. And exceeding expectations works with both, but some of the other categories.
Do you have a suggestion? Can you pull up the record scale?
Yeah.
If you could.
I don't know how the scoring works. If we have like a 0 that's no information, then we don't want that to reflect a poor score for Samantha when it's really no information. So
Maybe,
I don't know how the scoring works.
Yeah, maybe there's an additional circle that's not applicable, so that we have a kind of a neutral or no. What do you call it, Fred? No information, not applicable.
That will.
No observation.
That I would suggest we stick with, just for coding purposes, the not required. That you just don't
Just leave
answer
it
it.
blank,
Yeah, because it'll mess up when we do
Leave
it.
it blank.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to make sure 0 is like clearly it says like I don't know, does not meet expectations or something. Like,
Okay. Instead of does not.
It is a
Okay.
negative review. Yeah.
Sure.
So everybody clicks it thinking, I don't know, I'm going to put a 0.
Okay. Yeah, it does not meet expectations. Okay. Okay. So we can actually, if we can make that adjustments, I agree the 0 probably should be does not meet expectations. And then Samantha, you're really kind of piloting this, because at 6 months we can go through and you can say, this doesn't make sense, and then we can adjust if need be for the yearly evaluation.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Can we move then into the comprehensive plan implementation implementation review. And as we discussed, council would complete this plan. I'd like to discuss the timeline on that. I know this summer is really tight, so I'm wondering if we could set a goal for October for council to complete the comprehensive review that you're about to see, evaluation, and then Samantha, we discussed having kind of a town hall to review that information to the
Should
public.
basically provide our review public.
Yeah,
It's good to
yeah,
have a conversation.
absolutely. To have it as kind of a town hall public conversation.
I like that idea.
Okay, so if we can look at this evaluation form that Samantha has up.
Sure.
This is pulled, again, Michelle Carroll pulled all that we discussed to really just hold ourselves accountable on the goals and recommendations that we agreed with 3 years ago.
Yeah, so the way that Michelle set this up is, as you can see, for each section, again, it's taken straight from the comprehensive plan, where the goal is stated, and then each individual action item related to that goal has the Likert scale, as well as, let's see here. I think on this one, she put the opportunity for comments at the very end of each, the end of each goal.
This was such a good idea.
This looks great.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
This is such a good idea. I mean, when Cindy first suggested that we do this, I was skeptical because I thought, oh, but it was just, I get it. This keeps it alive. And It keeps the
Yeah.
conversation really current.
We do. I don't want to make
Keeps us
busy.
Yeah, I get you. I really get it now. Good job. That's great.
It is a lot of bullet points. So
It is.
So we have to thank everybody for, for, it's going to take a couple hours to go through probably.
It
so.
sure is. And
It's
what did
worthwhile.
we had said that we thought that, where did we land on this conversation? I have to go back and look at my notes. We had debated, is this something that council members do individually, or is it more important to have a collective conversation so we're discussing it? So are we filling this out collectively as council or individual members? What did we land on?
I don't know what we landed on, but I believe that this is best done kind of as a collective and in a public. We could do it in a public session. We could have several meetings where we sit together and just read through them, and either read through them aloud or just go through them in silence, and then as issues arise, you discuss them. But I know that when we reviewed the entire zoning ordinance in 2006, we sat together and we read it. And it made such a difference because you had everybody on the same item at the same moment, and it saved a lot of time later when we came back for discussion, because everybody witnessed each other's comments about that item. So it's like a way of really resourcing the community in a way. Does that make sense?
I agree. I mean, Fred, how do you feel about a separate meeting for us all to sit and collectively do this so the public can hear our reasoning, our rationale, details on the process?
So there's really too many bullet points for us to talk about every one of them. There's 150, so if we spend 5 minutes on each, that is 12 hours. So what we could do is we could highlight all the ones that are of high importance maybe, and maybe talk about those in public. That might be a better use if we wanted to do it in public.
Sure.
Otherwise,
So rather look at the goal level than the individual bullet points.
I'd volunteer to go through that with one of you and highlight what's the top. Maybe, so Fred, maybe we go for like 40 or 50 of them rather than 120. Yeah. Or however many there are.
Let's see how many are high priority. I don't have my complex.
Yeah, I don't have mine with me either.
Give me a minute.
There's one.
I'm hesitant to volunteer everybody else on council for several hours of meetings. So we want to, confirm this with everybody else.
Yeah, I think.
I don't mind.
You don't want to commit them to that?
No, 12 hours is a lot. I do think that maybe perhaps we do a hybrid is council members individually complete the forms and then collectively we need to review and really just identify those, why is it that I have this is not complete and Bob has it's done exceptionally well.
Yeah, that works.
And really we can
That's good.
aggregate that data and flag the questions where there's really a difference
That
in
makes
ranking.
It's the discussion that's of important items that is really important.
How's
And
that
I
feel?
think
Fred?
that happens prior to the review, or to the presentation.
Right. How's that feel, Fred?
Yeah, I'm just counting how many high priority items there are.
So kind of agree, like, for example, this one that I was trying to have up, the shared parking agreement thing, if everyone on council, said it's a 3, then do we really need to, talk about it?
Yeah. So there are 34 high priority items. So in theory, that could be a meeting, right? We could sit down and talk about all the high priority items on that list, or most of them. I mean, if we all realize, well, we're not doing this yet or something, whatever, we just don't talk about it. But so that could be a reasonable meeting. I mean, we could do most of those 34 maybe. It's still a long meeting. But potentially that's nice. Yeah, I think highlighting difference. So talking about areas where we have differences of opinion, or high important things that we haven't started yet. Those would be the most important things to look at, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Do you think October is a reasonable due date for council members to complete this, just the individual assessment?
I think
Yes.
I think that's reasonable. I don't know if having the town hall would be possible by October, but just having council complete it.
Just council meetings by, I don't know when our
And
second
does that timing work with the budget season?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I think
these dovetail in a certain way,
Yeah.
to some extent.
Yeah, I think probably I have not yet. So I'm just going to say anything public because I haven't
Sure.
finished thinking about how I want the budget process here to go. I'm thinking, I will say this, at your November council meeting, I'm going to legally have to have a draft budget for you to approve advertising on, so that way you can legally approve it in accordance to the advertising requirement at your December meeting. So if you go any later, for now, all I'll say is if you go any later than November, if you want this to tie into the budget at all, if you go any later than November, that won't happen.
So actually, the timing's good for October.
You can shoot for October 6th and not the 20th, because then the 20th we can, FNA can stream through that.
Agreed, the workshop.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I mean, this might be something we have outside of the regular kind of structure, depending on.
Yeah, honestly, I might end up proposing just to give you all a heads up, depending on what you all want to do. I mean, this is FNA, so this would probably be the committee I need to bring it to anyway, is, maybe having a separate meeting in September to give kind of a general outline on the budget to council and get general thoughts and priorities for 2022. And then maybe as part of this conversation in October, I can refine the budget further and then have, a draft one for November's meeting.
Sounds good to me. Fred?
That's great.
Okay.
Great. Okay, then let's move on to the American Rescue Plan funds.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the action items before we do that.
Sure.
Sounds like there are 2 action items here. Sounds like number 1 is this form needs to be distributed to the members of council with instructions to complete it by the end of September or beginning of October.
If we could do the October 6th.
Yeah, sure. And then,
Wait a minute, what if we have council members submit it to you?
It'll, once you complete it, it will.
Yeah.
Oh, this is live.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, 1955 here, sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And then it sounds like the other action item is it sounds like on a tangential sort of thing. It sounds like at our next FNA meeting, I'm going to have presented to you all the budget, calendar for, for the rest of the year in terms of getting the budget done and approved.
Yep. Sounds good.
See, this was.
And I think this process, the comp plan evaluation, actually moves into our borough grant strategy as well. So in other words, issues that we're not going to be able to capture in our next budget may also then, because we discussed tethering that to our comprehensive plan, may really inform the grants that we go for in the next grant cycle anyway. So if we're not capturing it in our budget, perhaps that allows us to pivot to our grant strategy.
Sure. And honestly, a lot of, we'll talk more about it when we get to that agenda item, yeah.
Okay. And I know that's on the back burner for now, but maybe again by it's 6 to 9 months that could.
Yeah, and the only comment I'll make to what you said is that most grants, I mean, when you apply for them, it's usually like a year before you can start spending the money anyway. So even if we applied for a grant in 2022, even if it wasn't budgeted, we wouldn't really have to budget for it until 2023.
Okay, rescue plan?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to report that the borough got its first half of the money on last week on the 14th. So that's all kind of taken care of. Next year we'll get the other half of the money. For those of you who understand, we probably did not want to read through the 35-page frequently asked questions from the Treasury Department. The most important information, I think, for council is the funding for municipalities is limited to a handful of different project types, as well as the most flexible of those being you're allowed to use the funds to serve as an offset for revenue loss attributable to COVID. And so the Treasury Department developed a formula. Let me back up one step here. So the total amount of money that Narberth is going to get is going to be about $450,000. So we got about $225,000 last week. About a year from now, we'll get the other $225,000. The money has to be allocated for and used, I believe, by the end of 2024. And after that period, there will be an audit by the Treasury Department to ensure the money was spent in accordance with the guidelines on it. So getting to the actual guidelines, there are specific uses. There's also a formula for revenue recovery. Basically, the way that formula works is you look at your budget from your actual revenue from the prior 3 years, so in our case 18, 19, and 20, and you apply a 4% growth factor onto it, which means that the Treasury Department is saying if COVID hadn't happened, on average municipalities should have had 4% revenue growth per year. And you basically subtract the two numbers, and then that tells you what your COVID losses were. I ran through that formula with the borough and found that it looks like we would be eligible to put the whole 450 towards it, because borough revenues did take quite a bit of a dip in 2020, it looks like. It's unaudited, we're still finishing up the 2020 audit, but the unaudited financials looks like we took a hit in 2020. So, and then plus that 4% growth factor, which the borough has not had 4% revenue growth for the past few years. So my recommendation is as much of that money as we're able to put towards COVID recovery, I would like to do that, because to be honest, that's going to be one of the easiest things to audit. We'll just have to prove to the Treasury Department that we implemented the formula correctly. And then B, once we've done that, that money, that's our money at that point. Now, I'm not saying, looking at the borough's audit and looking at some documents from prior management, I don't think anyone on council should start making plans for how to spend that money, because as you all probably know better than I do, the borough does have some cash flow issues, and by that I mean just for the benefit of the public as well. What I mean by that is the bulk of borough revenue comes in May and June when people pay their property taxes. However, the borough has to pay its employees all 12 months of the year. And so what happens in a lot of municipalities is when you get into January or February, revenues, there's not too much money sitting in the bank. So you need to have a cushion, to get you through until your next round of property taxes each year. My understanding is, as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, Narberth Borough was having to take out some short-term loans in order to cover its bills for that period. And I give a lot of credit to prior management and the Borough Council for getting the borough away from having to do that. But that being said, the official recommendation from the Governmental Financial Officer Association is to have 2 or 3 months worth of expenses kept in reserve, and the borough does not have that right now. And if most of this money went towards that, we would then be accomplishing that goal.
We discussed this at length in the past, and we all agreed how we wouldn't operate our houses ideally under that, and that's just a precarious position to be in within the borough. I personally would absolutely support putting it into the reserve just to secure the municipality. Bob, Fred?
I agree completely. In the past, it was somewhat costly for the borough to go out and obtain a municipal note and pay it off over the coming year. And it's just a kind of a cash bleed for no purpose other than just to keep the cash flowing. I mean, and it was costly. So that we were glad when we were able to eliminate that. And to use this funds to build the reserves really just is such a boost. It just gets us so much further ahead in our goal of being solid.
Agreed. Fred?
Yeah, I think we should take this forward and use it to replace lost funds. That's very straightforward. I don't see a reason not to do it. So
Sure.
I agree with everybody else.
Okay, then let's make that the official recommendation of FNA. Samantha, I assume you're going to need council approval for this. So when we propose it, let's all solidly say it's the unanimous recommendation of this committee.
Yeah, so what I'll do then is I'll write up a memo. Councilmember Rickards, as chair of this committee, I'll give you the opportunity to do a once-over on it, and then I'll present it to council at their August meeting for approval.
Sounds great. Okay. Grant strategy?
Sure. So unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, with the other projects that I have been working on, I apologize. I have not had an opportunity to really spend time on that topic yet. Like we kind of mentioned earlier, I think our work on the comp plan will kind of somewhat help, with that effort as well. The biggest thing I want to put together for you all off the get-go is at least a grant calendar, so you know what money is out there and when you need to think about applying for it. And then I think that will kind of help us start a conversation in terms of, developing what grants we want to go for and when and all that.
Agreed. Can I just ask, what's the process, though, in the meantime, if a community member comes forward or group says we'd like to apply for the grant? Are we able to say, yes, this is opportunistic, we'll take it, or is there some review, or can we say, no, in fact, we're going to pause until we have more of a process in place?
Sure. So what I think, I wouldn't want to say no, because I'd hate to leave money on the table, especially if there's no financial impact to the borough from an opportunity. I think, thinking a little bit more on that, what I've done in the past has been, you determine which committee is most relevant to a grant. So for example, the infrastructure committee, and we'll talk more at council tonight about it, is working on the county transportation grant application. So what I've generally tried to do is a certain committee will be kind of responsible for the grant. Borough Council will, of course, have to pass a resolution authorizing any matching funds, and probably just in general for any grant, Borough Council should, say yes, let's apply for it. But ultimately leave the review and drafting of the grant to myself and, the respective committee that's relevant to it. So if someone had a grant, for Narver Park or Sabine Park, Borough Council would have to approve it, and then Parks and Rec, and myself would be responsible for actually putting it together and getting it sent out. If we were doing something road related or stormwater related, infrastructure, would be responsible for it. But again, Borough Council would have to approve it. So that's kind of what my, for the moment, kind of suggestion is for us.
Thanks. Administrative office lobby security.
Yeah, I don't know how long we want to spend on this topic tonight. Basically, I will admit our office setup here is a little bit different than what I'm used to in past organizations. And I'll admit, when I first started working here, I was kind of concerned about how that was actually going to work. Now that we've been back open to the public, or at least on a part-time basis open to the public, the current furniture setup has seemed to work pretty well as you know, it doesn't prevent people from accessing staff, but I've heard some horror stories in the past of people just walking right up to a borough staff member. And I think what we have right now mitigates a lot of that. The borough's workers' comp insurer did do their annual walkthrough 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they gave a recommendation to the borough that we create more of a secure space. And while I do think we need something, I mean, I've heard horror stories over the years. The worst one is in I swear this is the name of the place. You can Google it if you don't believe me. In Paradise Township, 3 years ago, someone walked into the office, said they wanted to talk to the zoning officer. As soon as the zoning officer walked out, the person immediately shot and killed the zoning officer. So stories like that when you're a municipal employee and just, anyone who works in public service, you just hear stories about things that happen all over the place that occasionally make you a little bit concerned. So I don't think we should just entirely leave it the way it is, but I also don't think we need to, as to steal a line from someone else, and I'll give credit if credit needs to be given, I don't think we need to set up a pawn shop, sort of situation with the borough lobby either, because, we do have a certain community character, and we want to strike the right balance between, showing that we're open and inviting to the public, while also not creating unnecessary risk for borough staff.
I agree, and I think the history of why there used to be a high-rise kind of table and desk where community could come and stand and wait for a borough employee. And then there became kind of an awkwardness because you didn't really know who you were waiting for to address you, and it became kind of not only a physical but kind of a cultural barrier as well. Is that fair? So I guess from the F&A perspective, do you want to look at furniture alternatives and bring to F&A a price for us to review and allocate those funds?
Yeah, I think that'll probably be the best way to do it is, for me, and I'll work with Michelle as well, given that, Michelle Carroll, given that she, is our other main person in the office. And I can come back to F&A next month with an actual proposal to serve as a conversation starter, and we can go from there.
Is that
Great. Yeah. I kind of have
Yeah, go ahead.
it's new business. It's
Okay. Building access?
So give me 1 second to finish this note about that, and then sure.
Maybe I can give a little background for building access while you take a note.
Sure, thank you.
There were concerns from multiple council members, staff, and police that building access was not secure. There were a number of keys distributed to volunteers throughout the years, and we really had no way to identify who had keys or track who could gain access well. And really that was one of the critiques or the flags that we had under the review, the audit review, I believe, too. So we were scheduled to have a keyless entry building access to happen for borough-owned businesses, this time last year. And then you're going to update us on where we are in that process now.
Yeah, so with 80 Windsor, as many of you probably noticed, there are, keypads and all that installed over there. We recently had the contractor come out and do some wiring work required for that. So we're just about in a position where 80 Windsor will have that system up and running. To date, for 100 Conway, the only thing that's been done is the borough got a proposal from the same contractor to do the same sort of work, which I believe was around $15,000 to do that work here at 100 Conway. I would say that for the 2022 budget, if not 2021, I'm still working on completing my financial review for the borough. But I would say definitely for the 2022 budget we need it, and if we can afford it for 2021, I would like to, at that point, ask council to allocate the funds. So if F&A is in support of just, the money aside for a moment, if FNA is supportive of the idea of just doing it, period, then like I said, I can come back next month and let you all know for sure where the money would come from for it and ensure that we have the money to do it. And then, we can talk to council about approving the quote to actually do it.
I think in principle, the council's been in consent about that project for years. So I think it's wonderful that you're kind of implementing, getting it done, that you're getting to the point where you can get it done. This is total minutia. Is it just the primary entry doors or like all the doors? Will there be conventional locks, say on the storage access or the back door?
Right, that included interior, that proposal included interior doors as well, I believe. I'll double check, but I think it included
Because
both.
I believe there's like 7 or 8 exterior doors on the library building, and so I'm just wondering if they're all going to have keyless access,
sorry.
or if it's just the primary access doors.
So on 80 Windsor, my understanding, and I'll double check this for you, Bob. I don't want to say something that's incorrect in public. I will double check on that and we'll let you know.
It's okay. It's
So
somewhat.
I walk by the library all the time, and all of the doors look like they have keyless locks. I mean, I walked around and they all look like they were keyless locks as of a month ago. So.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So they did all, including the storage access to the basement and that kind of thing. So
I can't speak to the access to the basement. The exterior doors all look like they were the same keyless.
because I think part of the objective, wasn't it, is to know who comes and goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of a keyless system as opposed to just putting a new key lock in, so that we would be able to track entry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fred, any questions or comments before I ask one?
Well, that was my question, is the advantages of a keyless system versus just putting in new keys. I mean, I get securing the doors, that makes perfect sense to me, so I'd just like to hear the advantage of the system.
Sure. The other, in my opinion, the biggest advantage is not only knowing who is coming and going, but also if we do give a key to a volunteer or to a council member or even a staff member who moves on or whatever, you don't have to worry about hunting down a key or changing the locks. You can just deactivate that person's fob, and then you don't have to worry about any potential security risk.
Absolutely. Can I ask, this is adjacent to building access, but so for example, in our Borough at 100 Conway, in our kitchen, there are locks on cabinets that we don't have the combination or key to.
Now.
Oh, okay.
I was very recently provided with the combination to those locks.
Okay. So we can access our property.
Yeah, our facility. I pointed out to the user that our facility agreement with that user explicitly states that the borough has to either have keys or access to any locks that are installed. So I was given that combination.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, action items for Borough Council at next business meeting. I don't think there's any questions for this. Samantha, is there anything you need to highlight? That we won't discuss at the full meeting?
Let's see here.
Oh,
No, yeah, I think we're covered all pretty well at the full meeting. I just want to make sure this committee, there weren't any questions or comments from this committee before it got presented.
My question is just, do you have the owl on the next council agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that item 3.2 on your agenda here. And for Borough Council, it is one of the action items on the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
I've never used the owl.
No, but I read and watched the YouTube. I think it's kind of a great game changer. But I'm looking forward to trying it out. I hope it works as advertised.
Yeah, my thanks to Jim Spear for the suggestion. For those of you at home, Jim Spear is kind enough, to help record the meetings and all that. And he and I got together and talked about how we can make it, a better experience for people here as well as people watching online. And I thought the owl was a great suggestion. I had, Michelle Carroll look at it and prepare the memo for you all. And yeah, I think it worked out really well.
Well, I'm smiling because my suggestion is we all test run this. I was presenting with the University of Pennsylvania, and I thought look at the cute little owl. Isn't technology fun? Then it turns on, and it looks like the possessed little owl that every time you talk, it whips around with its eyes. It threw me for a loop. I couldn't catch my wording. I was like, the owl's gonna kill us. And so the owl is super cute until it gets going with its angry little eyes. So I do suggest we give it, it's awesome, but we should give it a test run before we start the owl.
Maybe it just needs like a little outfit.
Name? Yes, or like an outfit or a name, something. Yeah, I'm with you, and not like shoving the owl. Okay, perfect. With that, Jim, you're our only public, and I don't see anyone in Zoom. Do you have any questions for public comment?
Well, I was going to, relevant to that owl thing, I was going to suggest maybe we have a test meeting. You know,
Yeah.
I could get some Civic Association board members in here too and do some test streams to the YouTube channel or to Facebook or whatever we want to do and just see how it reacts. And, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a great idea,
Okay,
Jim.
cool.
Perfect. Thank you. With
Because
that,
that's in this room and the other room.
Yeah.
perfect. With that, then we're going to move in executive discussions to discuss a real estate matter. So, Jim, I guess I'll give you time to. I don't want you to have to move or anything, but
I'll
unplug
just
us.
leave. Yeah.
Do we disconnect? No, we don't. Fred's